Now, on behalf of my team at Graceworks and our author, Parksen, we're so glad that you can join us online. And we are also streaming live on YouTube. So if your friends were not able to register for this talk in time, then they can still tune in on that platform. And my colleague should be posting a link on the live chat right now. Now, the time now is 8:38 p.m. and I'm assuming most of us here are parents, and I want to kick us off with a poll for our author so that he can tailor the talk a bit better. Can I just find out the age of your oldest child? And if you have only one child, then we have the age of your only child. This is so that Parksen can tailor his talk to our needs. Okay, all right. Thank you everyone for your participation. Can we have the results, please? Thank you. Oh, wonderful. Oh, okay, we've got a good mix here. Thank you everyone for participating. Now, whatever the age of your child, we know that you are here for various reasons. Perhaps some of you are worried that your child is just spending too much time on his or her phone, to the point that it's affecting their sleep, their studies, their social skills, their communication skills. Maybe some of you feel guilty for exposing your child too early to digital media. And now that we want to take it back, it's hard to regulate their usage. Whatever the reason is, friends, we just want to encourage you that the fact that you are here says a lot about your commitment to be a better parent. So let's all start somewhere, and we hope that Parksen's insights will be helpful for you. Now, before I start proper, I just wanted to share a bit more about Graceworks and what we do. So we are a publishing and training consultancy, and we are big on promoting spiritual friendship in church and society. But that said, we don't just publish Christian books. We actually publish titles that are secular in nature and which have positive values that are non-religious and promote purposeful living. And part of the Graceworks journey really includes working with authors who have great ideas. And that's what I love about this job. When Parksen approached us with his manuscript, we jumped on board because we believed that he was a much needed voice in Singapore. But I will have more on that book later. For now, I would like to introduce our author, Parcsen Loke. Now, Parksen is a husband, he's a father, and more recently, he's a grandfather. And he heads the programs and development team for the Center for Fathering. And he's also a relationship coach, and he has counseled married couples, he's counseled mothers, fathers, divorcees with children, and many more. And this evening, we're so privileged to have him share his insights. Now, if you have any questions during the talk or after, please do feel free to post them in the Q&A section, and Parksen will answer them towards the end of the program. If you have any comments or any words of encouragement, please, you're welcome to leave them in the chat room. So let's just keep those two purposes separate. Please refrain from flooding the Q&A section. Now, without further ado, here's Parksen and his thoughts on how to father in a digital world.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming on and thank you for joining us this evening. Yes, I'm going to be sharing with you a small segment of a larger talk. Actually, this is part of a 1-hour talk, but I'm just taking a small little part out of it and giving it to you in about 15 or 20 minutes. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a gist of it and I'll leave you with a thought, food for thought at the end. Okay, so let's go. The title of my talk actually is Caught in the Net, all right, because I'm referring, of course, to the internet, and the tagline is Parenting in the Digital Age. Now, 70% or maybe more of Singapore families are dual earners, which means that, at least one of the parents is having a full-time job while the other is having either a part-time or a full-time job. Now that leaves many, many parents in Singapore with little or no time for their families and for their children. And this is a very real struggle that many, many parents have. But out of that has come something interesting and something I would say for now good. Busy Singaporean parents have invented a parenting method, a new parenting method, which I call hands-free parenting. Okay, as you can see from the photograph in this slide, a family with 3 kids. The mother is sitting directly opposite the father. I couldn't put her into the screen, into the snapshot. 3 kids, all given each a tablet and totally engrossed with whatever they're doing on the tablet. Now that leaves both parents hands-free and able to do whatever they please. All right, and therefore the term hands-free parenting. Now, we have to admit hands-free parenting is effective. It works, as you can see from this. And that's why many parents have chosen this mode of parenting as the default, And, we see infants given devices, tablets, phones, all right, to babysit them while the parents are having a meal, for example. But it has come with unintended consequences. For example, and the most obvious one is problematic internet use. Okay. Now, according to some polls like this one, Tata Communications did a survey in 2014, which found that Singaporeans are the second most internet addicted people in the world. Now, I don't know where Singapore stands today. We could be the first for all you know, but we were the second most internet addicted people in the world in terms of usage, in terms of connectivity, in terms of time spent on the internet. Okay, so definitely as parents, you would understand, you would be experiencing it right now that our kids are having problems using the internet, using devices. And I wouldn't go so far as to say they are addicted, all right? Many parents use the term, the phrase internet addiction. And I always want to help them to understand a little bit more. And I want to say that, I asked them, do you think you can be, or anyone can be addicted to the internet? And I always answer with another question, and that is, can a fish be addicted to water? Obviously, the answer is no. Why? Because water is the environment that the fish lives in. And without the water, the fish cannot survive, cannot thrive. And like it or not, today, the environment that we live in, especially our children, is the internet. I mean, for that matter, just think about all the things that we do on the internet, our banking, our shopping, our communication, our designing and many other things, our video creations, many things are done on the internet. In Singapore, wherever they go on a holiday, except during this circuit breaker, one of the things they look out for and they ask their travel agents is, will this hotel that I'm going to be staying in have free Wi-Fi? That's kind of the most important thing that they look out for when they're on holiday. So imagine a Singaporean going without internet for an hour or two. I mean, it is like pulling teeth, okay? So technically, you cannot be addicted to the internet, but you can be addicted to the things that the internet gives you access to, like gambling and social media and pornography and gaming, all right? Take, for example, this little boy, 5-year-old boy in 2018, it was reported in the newspaper. He had to see a counselor after throwing his phone at the wall in a fit of rage after being told by his parents to stop using it. I mean, a 5-year-old boy really flying into a rage because the mother told him to stop using the phone. Now, we have to ask, how did this begin in the first place? Well, it began when the parents started to use the smartphone to distract him during meal times. Now, I'm not saying, and we're not implying in any way that every child that is given a smartphone, as a form of, distraction or what we call babysitting during meal times or any time will end up like this boy. No, some might, but probably most would not. But in any case, it is not a good thing to do anyway. Why? Well, because giving a child, whatever the age, A device is like giving the child digital candy. And we all know what happens when we give sweets to children. They like it, all right? And they will like us. They will come back for more and more and more. And that's what happens to kids when we give them a mobile device and when we expose them to the screen, they just want more and more of it. So it's an eventuality that we will try to postpone for as long as possible. Now, the advice that I think I can give to any parent regarding this area of helping their children develop, self-control and moderation in terms of device use and internet use is the word agency. Most parents have the word control in their mind. So whenever they ask a question during my talks or workshops, how do I control my child? How do I control him so that he does not spend so much time on the internet or gaming and whatever they're doing on the computer? So parents, we need to move away from control and towards agency. And agency simply meaning letting them control themselves. So the better form of control is self-control than to be controlled by someone else. And the better form of discipline is self-discipline. I'm sure you will agree with that. So self-control and self-regulation skills are what we need to teach our kids and help them develop from as early as possible. And there are many ways you can do that, which I'll not get into right here. So these are the things we need to focus on. The sooner that you can train your child and develop these skills in them, the sooner you're able to relax, all right, and see them managing device use and internet use very well as they grow older. And particularly in adolescent age, this is what Common Sense Media is, a very well-known website and organization, all right, that provides lots of guidance and reviews of apps and books and movies and whatnot. They say that during adolescence, conflicts between parents and the teenager over screen time, device use, internet use, is more harmful to the adolescent's mental health than the screen time itself. So just think about that. The conflicts between parent and the teen about device use, screen time, is actually more harmful than the device use or screen time itself. So that's one thing that we need to bear in mind, and we need to find a way and ask ourselves, what is a better alternative? And that is agency, okay? Now, whenever our children, particularly boys, because boys spend more time gaming than girls, girls would gravitate towards social media and other things, but boys would more likely spend the time, if they're on the computer, gaming. And the parents, one of the most common complaints of parents is, my son, games endlessly, many hours a day, at the expense of homework and studies and things like that, and their grades might even be affected. And one of the things that parents do also is to jump to conclusions. They will begin to think of their child as being lazy, irresponsible, having the wrong priorities, and not serious about studies or life or the real world, but only interested in the game itself. Well, I tell parents, avoid jumping to conclusions, because what you're doing is you are diagnosing your child's problems. And if you diagnose it inaccurately, then your treatment will be inaccurate, ineffective, and it might even create a second problem. So Mr. Nicholas Koo, the chairman of the Singapore Cyber Sports and Online Gaming Association, a mouthful, tells parents, says parents are quick to point the finger at games, but gaming addiction can stem from something deeper. Now, I have first-hand experience about this. When my son, many years ago, he's 26 now, but many years ago when he was kind of a middle adolescent, he too spent a lot of time. He wasn't addicted, but he did spend a lot of time gaming, all right? And my wife and I, the treatment that we used was to take his laptop away, First time for 24 hours and second time for 48 hours. Did it change anything? No. Now we were about to do it the third time, but I decided that no, we're not going to do that, but instead I will have a chat with him. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that I should have done that from the beginning. Well, yes. All right. Hindsight is always 2020. So when I had a chat with him, I discovered that there was something deeper. And what was that? Well, in line with this research that was done in 2010 in the Singapore context, all right, this study was about how the use of the pathological gaming, video gaming among Singaporean youths, found that the most common reason why children, particularly boys, all right, are so drawn to gaming is because they use it as a form of escape, to run away from problems and bad feelings and stress of life. So that's why Mr. Nicholas Koo is right in saying that it could stem from something deeper. So as parents, it's worthwhile to probe, it's worthwhile to be patient, not to jump to conclusions, but to find out more, be curious, and to ask more questions, not to interrogate, but to be curious and find out. Here's a case in point. Mr. Aloysius Key, 19, back then in 2016, he was the only child and often felt lonely. And he said, I can't remember why my father bought me those games, but they definitely helped my loneliness. I go online to pass time and play with my friends. Now, the article also says that he did have a group of friends who plays badminton on Saturday mornings, and he would join them provided they did not play too early. And finally, he says, and this is the main thing I want you to take note of, is he says, it helps me forget any worries in real life. So you see, that proves it that this is a very common reason why boys gravitate towards games and spend so much time on it. It's a way of escape. So as parents, we can help them by showing them different ways of coping with stress, finding motivation and purpose in life. Finally, I want to leave this thought with you. Children love to play video games. And, once they start, it's almost very difficult to move them away, to pull them away from those games. All right. Now, have you ever wondered why do they like gaming so much? Well, some parents believe that, it is the programmers, the game developers who have put some codes into the program, to make it addictive. Well, like nicotine in cigarettes. I'm sorry to tell you that's not true at all. Okay. It's not any codes in the programming that makes the game addictive. Well, one of the reasons children loved gaming, not just because of the thrills, and the excitement and, and the ability to, just win. But there are many other reasons. For one, gaming, there are rules, but does anyone read the instruction manual before playing the game? No, no one. I mean, as adults, we don't read instruction manuals before installing the computer or the TV or the refrigerator. We just go ahead and do it. So the same thing with kids, they will just start playing. And along the way, they learn the rules. They begin to discover what they should not do because that will cost them points or life. And the first time round, the game would be very short because, it's new to them. But they get to try again. They get a second chance and a third chance and a fourth chance. And each time they get a second chance, they get to do it again. They now pay attention a little bit more. They remember the mistakes they've made in the previous time or times and try not to repeat it. And that's how they get better and better, and they have mastery of the skills. Okay. And of course, the anticipation of being able to get to the next level again excites them and gives them the sense of challenge and goal, to achieve. So my question to you is, or the thought that I want to leave with you is, Can parenting be like gaming? In terms of our rules, the rules does not change in games, in video games, and the punishment or the penalties also do not change, but they are not harsh either. I have a chapter in the book about authoritative parenting where I will explain to you, what are the 5 things that an authoritative parent or father does. And the very first thing is to make the rules and consequences clear. And the subsequent points are about how to enforce them effectively, consistently, yet not strictly, but firmly. And point number 5 is about avoiding harsh punishment. So I'm going to leave that thought with you. If you want to learn more about this subject or others, well, I'll be launching something called Good to Great Dads in 2021, starting in January. So just go to that website, bit.ly/good to great dads series to find out more. And in case I do not see you between now and Christmas or New Year, I want to wish everyone Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you so much, Parksen. I just have one follow-up question, which I have a question that I want to ask. So the sense I get is that it's important for parents to also walk the talk, right? To also not consume digital media, to not use phones in front of their children. I mean, I struggle with this because sometimes I have work emails to reply or WhatsApps to respond to. How important is it like for family level interaction? So I would say things like play times, meal times. How important is it for parents to not look at their phones? And are there some boundaries that can be drawn when families interact with one another, with their children?
Oh, definitely. I think being present, the father's presence, it's much more important than his presence. Christmas presents, for example, or birthday presents. His presence, his being there is much more important than all the things he can buy for his kids. Because, kids remember the father's presence, being there for them. We talk about fathers being the superhero, the hero of the kids. One of the characteristics of the hero is that the hero is there when he is most needed. So when a father is engaging with a child, for example, the phone, any mobile devices should be far away as possible. Not just next to him, not even face down. Many of us would think, oh, it's just next to me, it's on silent mode and it's face down. That should be enough. Well, it's not enough because researchers have found that there's something called a cognitive drain. The fact that you're thinking, that you're conscious that your phone is there, and you might be asking yourself, is there a notification? Is there an incoming email? Is there a WhatsApp message? The fact that you're just even thinking of that, it's a cognitive drain. That means you're no longer being fully there for your child. You see? Yeah. So it's not advisable to have your mobile devices near you when you're engaged with your child. And if I may just add that also, white noise. For example, if your television is on, but no one's watching it, you're playing a game with your child, but in the background there's a TV on, well, that should also be switched off.
Very interesting. Because it's white noise, it becomes a form of distraction, right?
It is a distraction, yeah, because sometimes, let's say it's a news, right? And then you hear a certain word or a phrase, and immediately again, it's a cognitive drain, immediately your attention, your face might not turn towards the TV, but your brain is now turned towards the TV and says, oh, what's that?
Yeah, that is so true. I mean, I find myself being guilty of these things as well. Well, thank you so much, Parksen. Once again, friends, if you have any questions, please do post them in the Q&A section. We, because of the technical issue we had just now, we are trying to cut short some of the content, but we want to devote more time to the Q&A. So if you have any questions, please do go ahead and ask him. Now, if you found Parksen's talk helpful, he shares many more tips in his new book, The Modern Day Dad, which we are launching this evening. As the team was working on his manuscript, we could really sense Parksen's deep understanding of parenting in a very local context, because the thing is, there's lots of Western literature out there, right, on parenting, but very few are written by Singaporeans who have an understanding that our society is very grades obsessed. Yeah, we must do well in school, that we are connected digitally, that we are conservative in an Asian sense, yet we are increasingly being exposed to Western ideas. So I feel like parents in my generation and maybe older are kind of facing that tension, and we are also digital natives, right? We are so in tune with social media. How about our kids? They are being born into a world where social media is part of their lives. So there's just so much to unpack. And I think Parksen is really able to do that in his book. Secondly, Parksen's book is well researched. You have seen in his talk, he pulls out research after research. And the thing is, he offers tips that are tried and tested. Thirdly, he also shares from his own experiences as a father and a son, interestingly. And I really appreciate his honesty and his vulnerability. So essentially, these are the reasons that made us really excited to publish this book. And personally, it gave me, as a wife and a mother, lots of food for thought as well. And it's also been endorsed by big voices in the fathering movement here. Not just Jason Wong, which we used to pitch the publicity with, but many fathers in the fathering movement here in Singapore have good words to say about it. We actually prepared a video, but to save some time, we won't be playing it. I'm just going to dive right into some questions that I have for Parksen regarding the book. So Parksen, what was your conviction behind this book? Why did you decide to write a book for fathers in Singapore?
Well, it all began, a few years back when I, started to ask myself, have I been a good father? And, I have to admit that, well, I have three kids, but the two older ones, with the two older ones, I felt that I didn't do a very good job for various reasons. And so I wanted to learn more. I wanted to find out how to be a better father, what a father ought to be like, and what are the things that he can do to really benefit the child, because I've heard of research about the father's involvement in the child's life has many, many benefits. So I began to research, I began to study, and I began to try them out. So we talk about, the book being in the Asian context is because I was in a sense the first guinea pig. And then as I share that with other fathers, as in my role as the head of programs at the Center for Fathering, as I shared some of the things I've learned with other fathers, and I began to see that it actually does work with them as well, and I began to also understand the nuances, and sometimes the tips that I share with them needs to be tweaked a little to suit different situations and different contexts. Yeah. So yes, the things I'm sharing most of them has been tried and tested locally in either in my own life or in the lives of many other fathers that I've had the privilege of helping, knowing, and journeying with.
Great. And you wrote this book for the modern day dad, right? And like you mentioned, you've counseled many in your job. What are their main struggles like? What are some things that always pop up in the problems that they present to you?
Well, there are many, many struggles. I think for the Singapore father, one of the biggest one is in terms of that work-life conflict. All right. Because the societal narrative has shifted, and we are moving away from the traditional model of fathering, which is, the mainly the breadwinner, but not always there, not engaged with their kids. All right, we're moving away from that towards the more active and involved father. So a lot of Singaporean fathers want to be that. All right, for two reasons. One, maybe society expects them to be. The family, relatives expect them to be, and also thirdly, they expect it of themselves. They want it themselves, but they might not know how to. All right, and so it becomes a kind of they're in a dilemma. I want to do this, but I do not know where to start. So that's one thing, and the other issue for fathers is a lack of role models in their own lives. I'm one example, and many of the fathers that I speak to, not all, but many of them did not have a good role model in terms of their own fathers. And so for us, we are like, starting off not just from ground zero, but maybe even lower than ground zero, right? So our learning curve is even much more steeper, okay? But doesn't mean you can never make it, all right? Because this fathering is basically about skills, and skills can be learned and practiced. And with practice, we actually become better at it, okay? Yeah, so these are kind of a common struggles that many fathers have. Of course, we're not talking about the other, more exceptional cases, where fathers or parents have kids who are really, really challenging for different reasons, or even the children with special needs. That's a different kind of kettle of fish altogether.
Mm, mm. And did you write this book exclusively for fathers? Can mothers buy it? Can grandparents read it?
Oh, yes. In fact, I would say that if fathers do not buy this book, I hope that the wives, the mothers would buy it for them. And the mothers can even read
Like
it
me.
and then, hint to their husbands and say, hey, well, this is something for you to think about. Maybe you can think about doing it this way and not that way and things like that. But to be serious, today parenting is very different. In the past, parenting roles were divided, fathering and mothering. Okay, so fathering, you have very specific roles, mainly the provider, and then maybe the disciplinarian, and maybe the one who passes down the culture and traditions of the family or their ethnic groups or whatever. All right, and the mother does the rest. Today, the two are merging together, they're coming together, and they are now you're able to collapse them and call them just one, parenting roles. Okay, and so because of that, whatever applies to the fathers applies to the mothers and vice versa. Okay, because fathers and mothers basically do everything together, do the same thing. They talk to the child, they play with the child, they read to their child. They do many things that each other does, but they might do it differently. But more importantly is this: mothers and fathers are two halves of a team called the parenting team. And for this team to really function well, be effective, all right, and really bring about the best optimum outcomes for the child, is for this team to be trained in all the necessary skills in parenting, as well as in their relationship, which means they need to also be trained in marriage principles.
Which is something that you also focus on in the book.
Yeah, I do talk a lot about marriage because this is something also very close to my heart.
Right. Thank you, Parksen. On that note, friends, if you would like to purchase the book, please refer to the link in the chat group that my colleague will be posting in a bit. And for today, we are giving you a 10% discount if you order it now. And if you would like your copy autographed by Parksen, he will be happy to meet up with you and have a chat with you and sign it for you. You just got to treat him to kopi. Parksen, do you have like a specific kopi flavor that you like? Kopi sutai, kopi
I always
hijau.
drink kopi o kosong.
Okay, all right. And that's not all, friends. We are giving away 2 copies this evening. So please stay till the end for a quiz. And if you answer correctly, you stand a chance to win a copy of the book. Now, I could go on about the book, but I know that many of us have questions for Parksen, but I'm looking at the question and answer window and I don't see any questions, friends. We have a fathering expert here, so if you have anything, please don't be shy. Just feel free to ask. Maybe even just share a struggle that you have or an instant that you have, interacting with your child when he or she was engaging in some kind of digital media or their mobile device. And just share with us. I think if the talk is anything to go by, we have learned that it is more common than rare for children at this age and Singaporean children to be engaged very much in digital media. So yeah, do we have any questions? Well, maybe if we have a bit, we do have we did set aside 15 minutes for Q&A. So we'll just wait for your questions to stream in. Maybe I can start off, Parksen. So it seems like, just like you mentioned, agency, right? To give the child some agency, some sense of responsibility to decide when they think it's time. Maybe could you simulate a conversation? You know, what are some practical things that we could say to the child? Let's say the child is, you know, maybe in primary school. You know, what would you say to that child?
How old is the child again?
Primary school age.
Oh, primary school.
going.
Okay. All right. Now, this is just an example. All right. Just get the concept and the principles here. Okay. It can vary from child to child, but the idea is this. For example, you know, parents tend to have a kind of a timetable for the child after he gets home from school, right? All right, now that you're home, the first thing, you know, put down your bag, go change, take a shower, take your lunch or something like that. And then, you know, go start to do your homework, or maybe there's tuition. So there is a timetable that parents have for their kids, right? That's quite common. Now, one of these days, maybe you can ask the child, you know, what if you have the opportunity to plan your day after you get home from school, what would that plan look like? Okay, so he's gonna, you know, of course, be so happy, you know, and plan it. You know, I'm gonna first spend the first 2 hours playing games, right, chatting with my friends on WhatsApp or whatever, you know, and then I would maybe take a short nap. And okay, so whatever he comes up with, just discuss it with the child and ask why. Why did you start with this and not that, you know, and why so long and things like that, just to find out his thinking and his needs. Okay, because when a parent plans the timetable for the child, we of course do it out of best intentions, but we might not know his needs. Just like an adult, you know, when we spend 8 hours in the office, are we productive or every minute of that 8 hours? No. Some are morning people, you know, and some are more night people. So we have kind of our peak times, our prime times that we are most efficient. All right. And if that's true for adults, I think that's true also for children. So I think this is a good exercise to just hear from them, let them have that freedom to express first, to explain themselves so that we get to know them. And then after that, try a way to work out a compromise, okay? Knowing their needs, knowing their concerns, and also bearing in mind and letting them know our concerns. You know, if you spend the first 2 hours gaming, you know, after you get home, my concern is that, all right, just share your concerns and then work things out together. So in this way, you're actually teaching your child many, many things, all right? He learns to communicate with you. He learns to tell you what's in him, what he's thinking, what he's feeling. And you're also teaching him problem-solving skills, which is very important in life.
Thanks, Parksen. Now we're getting a few questions in. Thank you, everyone. Okay, since we're on the topic of communicating with primary school going children, Charlotte here has an answer. Simon, I know you posted the answer first, so we will that question first. But let's work on Charlotte's question first. Now, Charlotte says that she and her husband keep telling their son to pick up after himself, but he continuously forgets. We get upset and reprimand him, but he is sorry, but each time he forgets. So, you know, they've wanted to remove privileges as consequences. It seems like, you know, it's the son is genuinely forgetful. What would be your advice, Parksen?
Well, there's always a reason. Apart from, I mean, the kind of obvious ones are like, you know, some children may be having some conditions like ADHD or dyslexia, all right, which my son was diagnosed with when he was younger. So we did see this kind of thing. We had this kind of challenges, you know, just helping him organize his cupboard, his wardrobe, his table, all right. It was a many year project, not just a 1 year project, okay. Now, but even for average children, some of them do struggle. And again, this very much boils down to some of these executive functions, these basic skills, all right, self-control and self-regulation and things like that, all right. So it takes time to help the child develop certain habits. Giving him instructions alone does not help, okay, because he knows what the outcome looks like, but the skills to do that might not be there. The routine and the habits might not be developed yet. So it takes time, all right? And it takes a lot of patience and guidance to get him to that point. And one of the things I talk about in the book about authoritative parenting is, a parent has two arms. With one, he sets the standard, and with the other, he says to the child, he holds the child and says to the child, what do you need from me or anyone else to help you, that will help you reach this goal? Okay, so very often we set the standard and we say, go, do it. But we forget to ask, what do you need so that you can do it? Yeah.
Thanks, Parksen. Now, Simon has a question. What would you say to a child that says playing games, being a social influencer or a YouTuber are also like a full-time job, that they want to do that as an occupation?
Yes, it is true. It is true. I mean, today, the kinds of jobs, and are no longer like in the past that you are either engineer or lawyer or doctor or accountant. Okay. During my time, those were basically the options given to me. But today, the options are countless, all right? And our children are very exposed and, and they are drawn to some of these things. Now, one of the ways to deal with this, all right, it's not so much to change their minds. Okay. I do not know how old this child is, but a child is constantly in the search of identity. Okay. And one of the things about identity is that it changes, and it can, over a lifetime, it can change a number of times. Okay. So don't worry too much about it, because whatever he chooses today, he might forget about it in a year or something like that. But, just again, use this as an opportunity to find out, what motivates him. All right. What motivates him about these kinds of, so-called jobs or professions or interests? What motivates him? What really attracts him towards those? So through that, you get a deeper understanding of who he is, which is much more important. Then you're able to guide him in his search for his identity, or in the future, his job or profession.
Because I guess many parents would, the temptation is to flat out say, no, why on earth are you thinking about doing this, right? That is not even a job at all. But yeah, I think many people of the younger generation, they are doing this as a full-time job. And maybe there's some conversations to be had concerning this.
Yeah. Or there could be all right. So supposing, if I'm the father, I says, all right, so let's say in about a few years time, that's where you're going to get. So it's not going to happen overnight. So in the meantime, what you're going to do, okay? So either you treat that as a hobby and you keep working on it, or you focus on something else, all right? Because in life, the reality in today is, having one skill, it's risky, right? There's something called the slash, what do you call that? Career or something like that. All right, your slash career. You have multiple careers happening at the same time, but at different degrees and things like that. So that's one way to help your child understand the reality of the world and life today, and how are you going to be ready for that.
Great. Now we have two very interesting questions. We'll answer Rainer's question first. Now, Rainer, you're asking, in these modern times, how do we balance between being a good husband and a good father?
Well, very simple. One affects the other. All right, one affects the other. If you're a good husband, to be a good father, actually, you need to begin by being a good husband. Okay, because like I said, as a father, what you really want to do is to be able to impact your child, okay, in all the positive ways, so that your child will be able to grow up in a home that has a safe environment, a very peaceful, safe, conducive environment where the child can thrive and develop fully. And the key to that safe environment, that good environment, is a good marriage. Okay, the marriage actually sets the tone, sets the atmosphere at home. Okay, and if the marriage is conflictual, right, and the parents are always yelling at each other, that creates a lot of anxiety and stress in the child, and it affects everything else. Grades are first to go, emotional stability is another, and many other things. The sense of security and identity, self-identity.
Now, wow, we have more questions coming in. That's great. But we are running out of time. Okay. Maybe, okay, since Reggie has a question, maybe we'll see if we can answer Reggie's question, and then if we have time, we'll answer Imran's. Now, Reggie has two daughters. One is a teenager who's still studying, and another who recently started working. They are a close-knit family, but they are often quite engrossed in their mobile devices and personal computers, even during meal times. So, is there a way to get out of this habit?
Yep. Well, in my book, I do talk about it, about how to have a device-free mealtime, for example. Okay, and well, one is to set a rule, okay, that no devices at the family meal table. But you see, for children for example, your daughter's age, it's very important to explain the rule, okay, and not just set the rule. The rule, if it's just created like that, for teenagers, they will feel that it's arbitrary, it's random, there's no basis, there's no logic behind it. So you need to be able to support it. You need to be able to justify it and explain the rationale, the thinking that has gone behind it. Better still, if it is based on a value or a principle. So in this case, the value is, of course, family. Okay, and well, one of your daughters is already working, so I'm sure the amount of time that you have be able to spend together is now restricted. So that makes the family meal, I don't know how frequent it is, maybe 3 times a week or maybe just once a week, even more precious. So the idea here, the concept, the value here is that family is important. We only have once a week that we get together, catch up with each other, and really, stay connected with each other. So we want to be able to treat this as sacred time, and we want to protect it at all costs. Okay, and some sacrifices have to be made, and all of us will make it. How? Well, we will put our phones far away from us and not bring it to the table. So you can try that, okay, and just emphasize that it is the value of the family, and this is a sacred moment. We want to protect it. So if there is a logic behind it, if it's reasonable, then I'm sure there will be greater buy-in. Now, for teenagers, this is the thing, all right? If it sounds reasonable, if it sounds logical, there will be buy-in, but not immediately compliance. Compliance may take some time. But if you have buy-in, it's half the battle won. So take heart.
Okay, I'm going to stretch it a bit, and we're going to squeeze in Imran's question. Imran wants to know if you have any tips of raising children who are more aware, more self-aware, right, as individuals, and hopefully that they will be able to find their purpose or their place in community and society. That's a meaningful question. Thank you for asking that, Imran.
Okay, I'm trying to understand. Okay, tips on raising children who are more self-aware, all right, which is good. Means they're not confused, they're not lost, they're not really, fumbling around, asking, who am I? Okay, like I said, our identities will change over time. Throughout our lifetimes, you'll probably change a few times. So at this moment, they might have something in mind, which is good. All right, and that becomes their motivation, that becomes their goal, which pushes them towards in a certain direction. It propels them forward. So it's a good thing. Okay. I would like to suggest a very good book for all parents to read. I've just read it, earlier this year. It's called The 100-Year Life. Okay, it's very eye-opening. It really will prepare all of us to raise our children in this new time where most of them would have a high chance of living up to 100 years old. Okay, and the way they live their lives will be very different from us and very, very different from our parents. So are we prepared? Are we ready to raise them and prepare them for that kind of life? That's the question that this book will help you answer.
Great. Well, on that note, friends, we trust that this talk has been beneficial for you. And if you have any more questions, Parksen, I'm sure will be happy to address them on another occasion. You can visit his blog for more parenting resources. We'll place his blog on our chat group, and his contact details are there too. And you should be able to, there it is, imparksen.wordpress.com. Now, friends, we also hope that as much as this talk has been beneficial and the question and answer section has been very fruitful, thank you for your questions. We also hope that we've piqued your interest in Parksen's very unique book about modern day fathering. But please don't leave just yet. It's time now for the quiz. Okay, I must preface, do not post your answer on the chat group. Okay, it is not fastest fingers first. You are supposed to SMS me. So I just want to put it out there first before I ask the question. Okay, here we go. Now, can you please complete this sentence for me? The title of Parksen's book is The Modern Day Dad Tips for... Now, it's obviously a giveaway. So if you get this wrong, I have nothing to say. So check the spelling and everything. And please SMS your answer to this number that's on the screen. And if you answer this question, Charlotte, please don't. Okay, I'm gonna delete it. Okay, don't post anything. Don't post anything on the chat group or the question answer page. Okay, SMS me your answer. Now, if you answer this question correctly, then 2 of you stand to win a free copy of The Modern Day Dad. The winners will be picked randomly. I have an Excel sheet, and then I use some algorithm, and it just jumbles everything up. And I will just pick 2 winners and will contact you via the mobile phone number that you sent me at. All right. Well, friends, on that note, we have come to the end of this talk. It was very enjoyable, and we really look forward to the day that we can hold physical meetings again. But until then, Parksen, thank you so much. We really do hope that you'll continue inspiring many, many fathers, not just through workshops, but through, and as your job as at the Center for Fathering, but also through this book. And until then, on behalf of Graceworks and Parksen, thank you, friends, for joining us virtually. Here's to being better fathers and mothers.
Hey, bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.